Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Palumbo. I'm the principal of Pleasantville High School. Today is August 12th. It's 7:25. We are meeting with our family engagement team as part of the work that we are doing for the reopening of schools for September 2020. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to give the team an update on some important information, things that we've worked on in the last week or so. You're probably aware that we have submitted a plan of instruction to the state. The plan is a hybrid model. We will be breaking the students up into two groups. I sent information out about those groups and that plan last week as part of my weekly update on Saturday. You will notice that instead of doing group A and group B, I made a small change. It's now group 1 and group 2. The reason I made that small change is because we're working on a letter day rotation to accommodate and I just people with group A, group B, day C, like that type of thing. So that's why I went with group 1 and group 2 for our two student groups, and we'll be working on that daily rotation. Group 1 is students A through L. Group 2 is students M through Z. The plan for September, and I want to emphasize that it's only the plan for September. It's not the plan for the entire academic year. I fully anticipate that we will be making some changes as the year goes on. But for September, what we will be doing is Mondays, and there are 2 of them during the month of September that are school days, will be synchronous learning days that take place remotely. We'll be following their schedule at home, and will be teaching live through Schoology and the Microsoft video function. Now, I've had a common question. Joe, are the teachers teaching in the building or are they teaching at home? It will most likely be a mix of the two. In my most recent conversations with the superintendent, she's indicated that she's more concerned that the instruction takes place, when it is supposed to take place, as opposed to where, because the students will be at home. So there's no reason why the teachers couldn't work at home if they have the internet ability to do so. On Tuesday through Friday, those are going to be a mix of our in-person and at-home days for students. If you're in group 1, A through L, your in-person days will be Tuesday and Thursday. During those in-person days, you will be visiting the school, you will be attending your classes period 1 through 9, and we're going to be taking all the steps necessary to ensure health and safety. If you are at home, you are going to be learning asynchronously on that day, which means that teachers will be posting lessons to their website. They'll use videos, they'll use web-based tools. Some teachers use Edpuzzle. There are a number of different tools that are used. All those tools will be used seamlessly with the new learning platform that we're going to be using, Schoology. And then what will happen is if you are home one day, on the next day, you will be in the building. And that rotation will take place over the course of those 4 school days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm currently working now. What I think we're going to do is that the activity period piece is going to be done virtually for students who are working asynchronously, on those 2 days of the week during these afternoons. And our students who are in the building will have the ability on that day to access their teachers in person. We also had students attend some of our other meetings. And the big piece of feedback that I've been hearing from students, and we're working on this, is how do we create some more structure for them on those asynchronous days? The easiest answer would be if I had either the ability to stream live into classrooms or more teachers, I would do that. So what we're doing now is we are looking at some different models, given that, like I said earlier, both of those options are not feasible. And the models that we're looking at are perhaps some different programs for students, perhaps using counselors, outside agencies to just build some structure into that school day. I've heard the students loud and clear. We're going to do our best to make it happen. And like I said, we'll learn a little bit every day. The month of September, like I said, will be our first month in. We some adjustments that will look at September, have results in September, runs up and getting large students into the building more often. If things go in the other direction, we may have to scale things back. Currently, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has proposed that the fall sports season begin on September 21st, if the governor allows it. So we have to keep our ear to the ground on that one. John Barreline, who's our athletic director, has been working closely with Section 1 athletics. We should have an update about that as soon as information is available. Some quick information about the calendar. The Board of Education met in executive session at the end of last week, and they have made some decisions. Earlier in the meeting, I had a question, Joe, has there been any thought to maybe postponing the start of the school year? The superintendent did reach out to the Department of Education and local politicians to talk about adding even more superintendent's conference days than we currently have to the calendar. And she was told that's not possible given the regulations around the 187 days of school. So, we cannot add extra days because we would then lose student days, which would have an impact on state funding. So what we've done instead of that is we've moved some of our days from later in the year to earlier in the year, and you'll understand how we've done that in a moment. Our plan for our new teachers is they're going to come in on September 1st. Our teachers who are going to be preparing for the school year are going to be coming in on September 2nd, September 3rd, September 8th, and September 9th for superintendent's conference days. During those days, we'll be doing training for Schoology. We'll be doing some work with advisory models that we're looking at, a number of different important initiatives. I want to add that we also have been working with teachers during the summer months to prepare them to use Schoology. I know Joanne's been involved in some of that. I've had an opportunity to attend some of our showcases that teachers have presented at in the last week. The work has been phenomenal. Joanne, maybe just real quick, could you share an idea or two about Schoology with the group? That's the learning management system.
As far as there's just a lot you can do to make it interesting.
Yeah, functionality, like how it might work and what a parent might expect to see differently this year.
It's not much different. It's very easy. It's intuitive. I think the students will really like it because it's just user friendly. And the teachers are very into it because they can show, like kids can show their work, like if it's math, right easily on the screen for their homework assignments. It's a great system. I think everyone's gonna like it for sure.
So I would say one of the biggest differences between Schoology and Microsoft Teams is that it's, for lack of a better expression, one-stop shopping. All the tools that students will use reside within Schoology. I think that's an important point to make because one of the questions that I've been receiving frequently in the last week or so is, well, I don't understand, Joe, are we still going to be using Teams or is it going to be both? The answer is this. We are still going to be using the Outlook, the email in Microsoft for students, and we are also going to be taking advantage of the video capabilities that reside within Teams. Now, luckily for us, and this is why we selected the product, all of that can get embedded directly into Schoology. So you're not going to have to hunt and peck around the World Wide Web, to access these different features. It's all there in Schoology, and I think it's going to be a great experience, and it's really going to improve the work that we do. Now, for students,
Joe, can I just jump in really quick about something about Schoology that the parents might not be aware of?
Oh, sure, Steph, go ahead.
Schoology has some really, like Joanne was saying, Schoology has some really great features, and also the way that you were describing it, it's that that learning system, that all of those apps that the students have been using throughout the e-learning process, or some of the students have been using, they're all in one place. So it's not like your students are going to be, and parents or families are going to be kind of searching all over the place to find information. But a really nice feature that Schoology has that the other system we've used in the past does not have is the assessment feature. So a lot of teachers are building their assessments through Schoology. And I know for myself and my co-teacher, we're looking at new ways of assessing students instead of kind of the traditional assessments that we've been doing in the past, where students are in school, physically in school 5 days a week. So there's plenty of time to give assessments, obviously, in school. We're looking at now some of those features of offering, alternate kinds of assessments to assess student understanding of content knowledge, but through Schoology. So Schoology is really nice creating assessments for students. So that's one of the new features that teachers have been spending a lot of time exploring recently. And also the assignments feature works. It's a lot easier for teachers and for students to navigate the assignment feature on Schoology, being that Schoology was built specifically for schools. So the assignment feature has some really nice features as well. And that's what a lot of the teachers are currently working on, how to actually build their assignments. So, in reality, students are going to be doing really everything, or could potentially do everything through Schoology. Just, based on some of the nice features that Schoology has there. And that's really what a lot of the trainers have been working on doing these past couple of weeks.
And from a family engagement standpoint, Steph, I think one of the big differences between Schoology and Microsoft Teams is that moms and dads, aunts and uncles, the guardians of our students, they're going to be able to access Schoology in ways that they couldn't access Teams. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I know, like, just from being, part of the science department, we all kind of streamlined the way that we were doing our e-learning. During the spring, we used a Google Calendar. We had it embedded on the school website. It worked out fine because I think everyone was able to kind of see where we were posting our assignments or what students would be doing each day. But Schoology, it's gonna be done similar in Schoology because there is an assignments and there's an updates section, but every teacher is going to be using the same program. So you're going to see way more consistency among what a kid is doing in social studies versus what they're doing in science, what they're doing in their English class. If everyone's kind of using the same platform, the students and the families are going to, I personally think they're going to find it much easier to navigate where the assignments are, where the updates are found. It's a really user-friendly program. I mean, I had no experience with it up until really the end of the school year and, just the past couple of weeks as being one of the trainers. And I feel like I'm getting all my information in there. I find it really user-friendly. So I think students and families are going to be really happy with it.
And again, the big difference is to access Microsoft Teams as a parent, a mom or dad, you would have had to have a Microsoft login, and
Correct.
your password, or your students login and their password.
Correct.
You will get an access code to Schoology, as a parent, and you'll be able to get in and see things that you weren't able to do in Teams, which I think increases the transparency. It allows parents to take a peek in regards to what's going on and have productive conversations with their students.
Yeah. And just to give just one more point, just like on the teacher side of it, I've built everything in Microsoft 365 over the years. So I have all of my content there, and just the transition of moving my content from that program to Schoology, it was basically seamless. Just seeing how easily that worked, I really think all of the other applications that we use to teach the students are going to work the same way. I mean, I literally just had to copy material from one program right into Schoology, and it happens so easily. So I think it's a good program for sure.
It's good to hear. Thanks, Steph.
No.
So our orientation programs, that we're going to be looking at for students, I'm going to be meeting with the school counselors, working with my team. We're going to be using that first day with students, which is currently the 10th. So we're going to look at the 10th and the 11th, as an opportunity for us to build some things out. We're going to see both groups of students once in person. So there'll be some parts of the orientation that are, done in person. There will be some parts that are done remotely. Now, even the in-person part, when we're in the school, is going to look a little different. We've been encouraged by health professionals to not bring the kids into the auditorium, for large group assemblies and presentations for good reasons. And we've also learned a lot, using Zoom. So, what I see in terms of beaming information out to students when they're in person, is me using a tool like this, the video being broadcasted in the classroom, and then the teacher then being able to follow up and really do things in smaller groups with the students that they're there with. So there's going to be that component, when we begin, and then we're going to be doing some similar work with with the families. Dr. Fajo and his team that's training now is working to develop some online virtual boot camps for parents in regards to how Schoology works on that end. We're hoping to finalize our plans for those activities this week. It's my plan to include information in my weekly update this Friday about when those sessions will take place, so that parents will feel comfortable and have the same proficiency with the tool as students do as the year begins. I'm also going to make sure that any boot camp that we hold for Schoology to provide parents with that information is archived, so that we can put it on the website. I can include it in my communication, and if people want to go back at a different date and review it, they can. If for some reason they can't attend when it's scheduled, it will be available. And then we'll have our tech team available throughout the year to also provide support. On the 19th and the 20th, which is next week, believe it or not, August is flying. We're doing 2 meetings with parents, through the PCO. I'm going to do them webinar style, and I'm going to ask that people register beforehand. The primary reason I'm doing that, there are really 2 reasons. The first is I'd like to have an idea about how big the audience will be. And then the second reason is, just for security. There have been some issues with Zoom meetings all over Westchester, Putnam, and Fairfield counties in the last few weeks. I do not want anybody showing up in a meeting, if I can avoid it, doing things that they shouldn't do, in a live meeting, which is, again, one of the reasons why we're using the webinar feature too. What we're going to do on the 19th is that meeting will be geared towards the 9th and 10th grade. And on the 20th, it will be geared towards the juniors and seniors. Now, parents can attend either meeting. You're not going to get different information at one meeting versus the other. I was just trying to work within the constraints around the meetings in general. I think I'm limited at 500 participants. So if I had a mom and dad, or 2 different guardians, both log in from different locations, and I was only holding one, it would be really impossible for me to do that. So I've broken apart in those 2 ways. I am going to have one of the school counselors, at the meeting. Someone asked a question earlier, will the superintendent be there? I'll talk to Superintendent Foxhalter about attending. I feel comfortable, answering questions that folks have. What I will do as part of the registration process is ask people to share questions that they have, in advance of our meeting. That way I can take some time to prepare, and my opening remarks, can speak to those specific questions. At the same time, we'll use the chat function to allow people to submit some questions during the webinar, and I will answer the ones that I can. Any question that I cannot answer, which is completely possible, I will look into after the meeting is over, and I will then incorporate in the FAQ document, that I've been updating, as regularly as possible to provide people with the information that they need. And that's the plan for next week on the 19th and the 20th. Little quick update on our student meetings. We've had 3 meetings with students so far. Tammy gave me some great feedback earlier this week about maybe using some other online tools to increase participation. Mr. Bafuto is working to use Remind. The challenge with Remind is that kids have to sign up for it. So what I'm going to do in my weekly update on Friday this week is let families know about the Remind. I'm going to ask them to speak with their sons and daughters about it. I will email it directly to the students as well. That's something that I've been much better with in the last 4 weeks in regards to making sure that any of the updates that I send out, I also send out this to the student email accounts. Simultaneously, I also know that students, do not really access those counts on a regular basis unless they have a concrete reason to do so. So I've asked parents to please partner with me and speak with their children about accessing those accounts so that they can get information when they need it. And I've had some good responses. I would say in the 3 student meetings that we've had, kind of all together, I've had about 150 different students, and some of those students attended the meetings that we had this week for reopening, which was great. I love the student perspective, and I've had the opportunity to field a number of different emails from students. So I think we're doing a good job in terms of connecting and informing and really navigating a situation here that's much more fluid than any situation I've ever been involved in public education. I am, accustomed to having a plan for September, before the summer even starts. This year, very different. And I do anticipate that we will probably have some additional curveballs thrown our way in the coming weeks. It's important that we remain agile and have the ability to make some change, very quickly if we need to. So I think those are 2 important things. Marianne Flatley, who's with us tonight, she has talked about some work that she's been doing through student assistance services in regards to engaging students and engaging families, during these really unprecedented times. Marianne, I'm curious if you might share some of that with the group and maybe give me some ideas, some questions, things that you're thinking about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, obviously, like you just said, Joe, it's a very challenging time for everybody. I think, the social emotional wellness of students, families is extra important at this time. Something that I've been thinking about just in terms of, starting the year off, I think just sort of like going back to basics in terms of like how I'm thinking about my work with students is really helping them to figure out like really what are the things that they can control in their lives. Things like sleep, things like nutrition, things like exercise, creating a schedule that works for them and really trying to stick to it. These are things that I think are vitally important that we talk about like right at the beginning of the school year. So I'm thinking about different ways that I can go about doing that. And in the past, I've pushed into PE like very often, giving VAPE presentations and presenting information that way. So I think it would be a great way for me to, I always love to have FaceTime with students, on the asynchronous day to present information that way and also try to engage them virtually, have like icebreakers and try to make it as, fun as possible, even though that can be really challenging in this environment. There are ways to try to do that. I know that that's just, my main goal for the year is to just try to, even though it's very challenging, connect with as many students as possible and to just make myself available, to everybody and, remind families and students that I'm here, to help really. I also, as Joe said, I work for Student Assistance Services and we really are a substance abuse prevention agency. Right now, the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services are sort of like our governing body. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, but really the scope of our work as student assistance counselors has expanded. So our focus doesn't necessarily have to be on substance abuse prevention. It really is on just the overall social emotional well-being of students, really. So I'm really here to help in any way. So I would really encourage anybody here tonight or watching this at any point to reach out to me if you need anything. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the school year. As I don't know if that's a strange thing to say, but I think that we're all kind of in this together, and we just kind of have to roll with it and figure out the best way to support students throughout this really difficult time.
Marianne, I'm glad you mentioned the work that you do in PE, because one of the conversations that we had earlier this evening at our wellness meeting is that our PE teachers are going to be getting some specific training, with our Steps A curriculum.
That's great.
And the idea is that in grades 10, 11, and 12, we're going to infuse some of that work there. For those of you who aren't familiar with Steps A, it is skills teaching for emotional problem solving.
For adolescents.
adolescence. That's where the A comes in. So our PE teachers are very excited to do that work, with Dr. Mancari and also with Marianne Flatley. So that's something that we will certainly continue, in addition to a school-wide advisory model that we're going to be adopting. And I'm working now to coordinate professional development in those areas for teachers on some of those 4 days that we have for PD as the school year begins. So, it's certainly going to be a lot of work. And, one of the things that my wellness team shared today, which I believe is important to kind of bounce off this group here, is they said, Joe, an advisory program sounds great. How do we introduce that concept to families? So, that's something that we're going to be, designing a program around. I was curious here, is everybody familiar with an advisory? Have they heard about those types of programs anywhere in the past? No? Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of information. Advisory programs are essentially set up in small groups, and teachers lead a variety of topical conversations. For freshmen, it could be around the transition. For sophomores, it can be around, character development. For juniors, it can be the college process. And then for seniors, it could be their transition, into a new learning environment. So developmentally, there are a variety of topics that can be covered, but I just tried to give you an idea about how topics could be different. Obviously, all of our students who are coming back to school have a common experience in regards to leaving their building last year, whether it was the middle school or the high school, and being home for a number of months and now coming back. The data does say that it has impacted students in a variety of ways. So I think bringing in the group that we're going to be bringing in to do some consulting with our teachers will lead to great opportunities for discussion, hopefully community building, and the formation of relationships, within those small groups. And, we are looking to launch that as part of our in-person program, and then maybe extend it to some of those asynchronous days, that we have throughout the year. We're looking at our homerooms as the opportunity to do that work. Those typically take place during second period. So it could be a different teacher. It's not just the social studies department or the English department or science or math, which is why I think it's important for us to train all of our teachers. And then I also believe that although we'll have advisory, there are some students who just gravitate towards people who might not be their second period teacher. So if I equip all teachers with those skills to speak with students about a variety of topics, the things that they're experiencing, and then redirect, if there is a clinical need, that's important. And, that's one of the things that I've tried to emphasize with, the team, that as we work to devise a plan for advisory, is we are not going to be asking our classroom teachers to be social workers, or school counselors or clinicians. We're asking them to listen, to provide advice or direction when appropriate, and then to really redirect, if they believe that a student has an issue that would be better addressed, by one of our clinically trained, members of the staff. Does that sound like pretty much your understanding of the advisory model, Marianne? Am I hitting the mark there?
Great, and I feel like, just to add to that a little bit, I think Pleasantville High School does a really good job in terms of prioritizing relationships, and I think just particularly now, it's kind of the crisis that we're in, I don't think that the importance of that can't be overstated. Developing those relationships and nurturing those relationships, I think it creates an environment that is conducive to learning, and I obviously that's why schools exist. So I think that all sounds wonderful.
The students that we had in the groups earlier today and yesterday, they kept on using the R word. They were talking about relationships. So I really believe anything that we can do to solidify the relationships throughout the school community, between teachers and students, I think it's going to pay real dividends. I think it's a good investment of our resources and our time. So I kind of want to open it up now to see if folks have any ideas, suggestions, comments, things that we might introduce that we haven't talked about yet? Tammy?
Oh, I don't know if I missed. Do you have any date and how the distribution of computers are going to go?
So that is going to be part and parcel to our boot camp conversation. So I'm hoping to release that information, if not this Friday, by Monday or Tuesday next week. The primary challenge there has been just servicing all of the computers that we got back, and then getting all of the computers that we're going to be giving out ready to go. And that's been a bit of a challenge because our typical cycle was to not be 9 through 12 with computers this year. So we hired additional members of our IT team, over the summer months, and that's something that they're working on. But my goal would be to get those back to students before they were in person on the 10th.
And they'll be bringing the computer to and from, like I remember
Yeah.
Steph Nara had mentioned you're trying to go paperless, so everything would be on the computer.
So we're going to try to limit the exchange of papers between teachers and bringing things in. And, I had a comment last night. They said, Joe, last year, the technology wasn't used as much as it could be when we were in school. And the teachers who were in the committee, not me, immediately chimed in. And they talked about the work that Steph referenced earlier, the training that they're getting, the facility with the tool, and the fact that the tool works on a consistent basis. One of the biggest challenges that we had with Microsoft pre-pandemic, and Steph can talk about this because she used it in the classroom, is we had a lot of functionality issues. And I think it was primarily based on, and I think Steph made this point earlier, that the tool really wasn't designed for schools, and with our layers of security and protection and encryption, we ran into a lot of trouble. So I see our teachers, really making that move towards that paperless work for a number of reasons. Steph, does that sound like a fair statement? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I mean, trying for, for amount of it's just environment. Like we give a lot of notes in science, and I felt like there were years where we were printing huge packets of notes, and just want to see that change. Also, I don't really want to be collecting papers from students. First, also me handing stuff back to students. I think it's just, a good measure for people to kind of be looking towards with the fact that we have, not only COVID, but also flu season and other things that can kind of get, passed around. So I think, I can only really speak for myself. I'm going to try and really limit the amount of paper that I give out, even in a science-based course. I mean, there might be some kind of assignments where I need to, have students do something, but I really want to limit it. And I know a lot of other teachers are looking as well. And what is really nice about Schoology, and I saw this firsthand during the spring, teams had an assignment feature. It didn't always sync well with the work that students were trying to submit. It worked for the time being. It was great during March, April, May, and June to get assignments back and forth with students. But I can already tell just by setting up some of my kind of practice assignments in Schoology, the assignment feature in Schoology works a lot for the work that we do, because it is a program built for schools, where Microsoft was not a program that was built, for teacher education or
Right. And when should we expect to have our student schedules?
So that's a good question. I met with Joyce Connell earlier this week. We are going to be flipping the schedule or the eSchool data system that we have tomorrow. So I'm hoping to release those next week. It's a little bit later than we ordinarily do. And then what we'll do as soon as they're released is we'll send a typical letter. Well, there's going to be a letter that goes out on Friday, which will say when the portal is going to be open and then the schedules will be updated. And in the letter, you'll have the information about accessing counselors to have conversations about changes. Now, changes has been an interesting thing for me to think about, right? Each year we use some language about the types of changes that are allowable and the types of changes that are not. And then we obviously always end up being more flexible than we say we're going to be. This year, we're not going to be able to be as flexible as we always are. That being said, obviously, if there's something missing from somebody's schedule, or there is an extenuating circumstance that requires us to change something, we can look at it. One of the benefits of being in a small town, of 580 students at your high school, is that you get to know everybody and you've got great access. One of the challenges, for a schedule maker is that, we work with a lot of singleton offerings, and we don't have the flexibility that a bigger school might have that can run a number of sections for each one of their courses. So that workaround changes will be done very carefully, when it can happen, with the counselor, the student, and the parent, in conversation.
Do you think there'll still be, usually guidance sends something out, there are some electives that aren't completely filled, and if you have a free, will that still be the case?
Yeah. So what we typically send out is a letter that says that there are, X electives available. These are the periods. If you have a free period, we can talk about putting you in the class. What we always end up getting is appointments that, well, I'm not really free that period, but I know that so-and-so has English this period. Don't you think we just might be able to do this? And when we can, we typically make those types of moves. But I think our approach is going to be a little more conservative this year, than on most years, when you don't have that free period. And we end up getting a lot of very interesting requests. One of the other requests that we'll get commonly is, Mr. Plumbo, I've thought about it a lot during the summer months. I'd like to change my level, of a course, whether it be Regents, Honors, AP, those types of things. So when we build the schedule, we make decisions about teacher assignments based on the course requests that we have. So typically when we can make those moves, if students express to us, that they're having trouble and they need help before the year even starts, we typically do that. So that's normally handled on a case-by-case basis.
And in terms of chorus, band, orchestra, I know last time we were talking about tents. Are those going to be held outside? Are they being held in large?
So the plan for our performing arts programs, both the band and the chorus, is we want to utilize outdoor spaces as much as possible. Looking into a tent for the back field. I had a family donate one. Going to be working with John Verchese, who heads up our band program, Nadia Rizzo, who heads up our choral program, and we're going to be looking at options for that. I will say that for band and chorus, there are different considerations than there are for English, science, math, social studies, and English. Dr. Sothoff, Harold Sothoff, who's on our health and safety team, he talked about his big concerns about doing any of that work indoors, last night, just because of the potential for aerosol transmission and what happens when you are playing an instrument or singing loud. So, outdoors is really going to be, our move for that. And then we're also probably going to try to leverage our technology as much as we possibly can, and also look at sectional meetings as opposed to larger group meetings, just to keep that density down in terms of the number of students, when we engage in those types of activities, all as a result of our desire to keep students safe. I mean, I would love to have our full programs and not be having this conversation, but we really have to approach this in a serious way and make sure that programs that we plan, are safe for kids. That's the big thing. And like I said, Dr. Sothoff last night, his biggest reservations when he talked about our plan were around lunch periods and chorus and band. And he was really concerned about lunch because you have to remove a mask to eat. And he was really concerned about, chorus and band because of the droplets and how far they can be expelled. So, for lunch, we're going to be, adopting a bit of the same playbook. We're going to be looking to get students outside as much as possible. In the areas where students will eat, we have HVAC engineers looking at increasing our air exchange, on an hourly basis. So we're going to take all the precautions that we can to make sure that those spaces and those programs are as safe as possible.
One thing that I think would be helpful also is if there are any supplies, like I'm just thinking art supplies that can't, students aren't going to be able to share anymore, or if any teachers are asking for specific supplies, even though they're going to have the laptops, if we can know about that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that the area, and you hit the nail on the head, the area where that's going to be most common is going to be in the art department. And what we're working on now is we're thinking that instead of bringing things back and forth, we'll probably have a plastic bag in the building that is so-and-so's art supplies, and it's stored somewhere. And then when they come back, they access it, on the day that they're in. So I'm working with Mr. Nemec now on a plan for that. We're going to push information out as soon as possible. I don't believe we're going to be asking parents to buy a lot of supplies, for that art situation. And that whole piece around classroom notebooks and things, if we're using the devices to the extent that we plan on using them, we're not going to be really using the notebooks in the same way, at least the traditional ones in the same way, this September. Yeah, Joanne.
Hi. So for the library, I have something exciting. I was working this summer with the tech department, and we set up a access to a consortium from BOCES, through BOCES, with other schools to give our students access to ebooks over 10,000 as a basis. And it's called Sora. It's run through Overdrive, if any of you are familiar with ebooks through the Westchester Library. It also connects the Westchester Library to this same system. Access is super simple. They put in their username and password, and they get access to all our ebooks. And then you or I can teach them, probably go into English classes and teach them how to hook in to the Westchester Public Library, so they get access with that. And as well, we can purchase our own books, and that'll be totally ours. So it's very exciting. And again, with the limit to the touching of all these, papers.
I was thinking on those asynchronous days, Joanne, it might be neat to create like some book clubs and different things where if kids are, want to gather and talk about something that they've read or, something that they're doing. I know we've got a lot of kids who are interested in the anime and things like that. There's just some opportunities there.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to doing that too. Make it easy.
Yeah. Other ideas, questions, suggestions?
Just one thing that I was going to add, I don't know if you brought it up it was brought up in the wellness meeting, but just in terms of the 9th grade orientation, I know the club that I moderate, Sources of Strength, consists of peer leaders who are now in 10th through 12th grade. And many of them have signed up to be peer leaders to the 9th graders. And they also are interested in kind of like not having it be like a one-time thing, having them check in, over the course of the year, and recognizing that it's going to be, a unique year, and that the 9th grade will really benefit from having older students to kind of look to for that support. So that's just something else to kind of throw out there as something.
Well, I bet your ears were ringing because we were absolutely talking about you an hour ago and the Sources of Strength students and opening it up for other students as well. So that's something that Joyce is going to be working on late this week, early next week, to get some students involved, and then look at some virtual opportunities to connect with them and prepare, for a small group, tours of the building and some different activities. And I love the idea of creating that staying power and developing that relationship throughout the year. So that's something we can certainly capitalize on.
When you said about the book club on the asynchronous day, are there plans for, because the teachers are going to be teaching the other group, are there going to be different things throughout the day where if students were having difficulty, or like some different, I guess if they needed help with something, is it something that parents are going to have to, just form together, or will there be some opportunities where the students can actually either connect with it?
So the activity period piece, because the teachers will be free, will be absolutely dedicated for the kids who are asynchronous. then what I want to do also is build a schedule of, for lack of a better expression, office hours or help centers for those students who are asynchronous. So if they need to connect, that they can. It might not be their classroom teacher, but I'm going to look to try to build that in with the staff that we have.
It's like if, there was a math teacher who was free and student needed help with math, it might not be their math teacher, but they would know that that teacher was available, like they'd be able to connect with somebody.
Yeah, so that's the type of thing that we're going to look to capitalize on.
Okay.
When you talked about trying to provide more structure, because students and perhaps all of us are looking for structure on the asynchronous days, what does structure mean in your head at this point, this snapshot in time?
Well, at this point, given the resources that I have, it would be around helping them develop a schedule for the day. Back to Tammy's point about maybe building in some opportunities for check-ins and support if needed during the day. The real challenge is, like a few members have just pointed out, is that the teachers that I have in the building, will be teaching, when the other kids are at home. And we don't have the ability at the moment, for kids to Zoom in. And even if we did, we could probably go back and forth for at least an hour about whether that's an effective, way to do that work.
Sure.
So, we're kind of exploring all avenues and possibilities. And, some of my, school counselors, people who run groups, have talked about maybe scheduling those types of activities during the day on the asynchronous day. We often will run groups at the high school for a variety of students who are experiencing a number of different things that teenagers experience. And Marianne can attest to this. The biggest problem that we have on a typical year is that students, their free time doesn't match up. Right. So, that asynchronous day might give us an opportunity for some of that, and then also in the meeting that I just left, we talked about maybe, harnessing, some of the community opportunities and partners that are out there and offering some different programs for students. We talked about getting feedback from students before we just put things out there for them in an effort to hopefully get things that they are interested in. So, we're really kind of thinking this out and trying to determine, what we could do, to best help, those students and provide them with, some structure, during the day.
I know on Facebook, they, some people have said that, to have other students who are available, who are home at the same time. So like you could get help from a 12th grader, if you're a 9th grader, Yeah,
so one of the big suggestions, one of the kids yesterday said, Mr. Plumbo, what I really loved? They said, I loved in the spring when we did more project-based work. And then on the off day, I can connect with somebody virtually, or we can meet somewhere and kind of be socially distanced. So that PBL, I think, project-based learning kind of also may offer us an opportunity for some of that, whether it's in person or it's virtual. So I think there are some opportunities there as well. And I continually connect with the members of the Southern Westchester Principals Association. So if there are any countywide opportunities on those days, that's something I'm keeping an eye on as well.
You had mentioned that there are only 2 Mondays in September where the children will have classes.
Correct. Yep.
Asynchronous. What are those 2 dates?
I turned my phone off because it was ringing. Does anybody else have a calendar in front of them?
Joe, it's the 14th and the 21st because
Okay.
the 7th is Labor Day and the 28th is one of the
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, I think.
Very
Yeah, so
good. That's what I thought. But
what I think we should do is, last week of September, we should assess where we are and determine whether it makes sense to keep those synchronous days for October, or do we fold them into another rotation day, between the one group and the 2 group. I'd love to see what our results look like, from those first 2 Mondays. On those first 2 Mondays, we're going to have an opportunity to iron out some of the inevitable wrinkles, they're going to pop up when you do a synchronous program to students and teachers who are in different locations. So I think that's a good opportunity for us to learn and then adjust. Okay, well, it's 8:15. I'm going to figure out what's for dinner. I want to tell you that I appreciate everybody for coming this evening. This summer and this work and this situation is not easy on anyone. You know, I think that's a real harsh reality. You know, these times that we're living under is that everybody's under stress. Everyone is, you know, trying to make all the things in their life work that they had planned out and now have changed in very different ways. So it's important that we continue to keep the line of communication open, that we work together. And I'm convinced if we do those two things, you know, the outcomes for our students will be great. I'm excited about the year. Marianne, I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. I'm so looking forward, you know, to seeing the students when I see them in, you know, around and they run up to me and want to grab me and jump on my back. I'm like, guys, you can't do this. You know, so that's going to be a little bit of I think a learning curve, you know, for people, but I'm very optimistic. That's the way I choose to live my life. And I believe that there are better days ahead, and we'll work together and we'll get there. So I want to say thank you.
Power back.
And I got power back, air conditioning, running water, lot to be happy about. So I wish you all the best. Have a great evening, and I will see you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Bye,
Thank you.
Joe.
Bye now.
Thank you.